What's up guys, this is Ian from TechSport, and today we've got some science for you guys.
Yes, science!
We are taking our Toyota GR86 fleet car and testing 8 different intakes for you guys to see what kind of power they make and what the dyno results are and our unbiased review of each one. So without further ado, let's head down to the dyno and get this thing started. Got this GR86 baseline dyno completed. It ended up making 235 wheel horsepower and 186 wheel torque. First, drop-in filter. This is going to be a K&N drop-in filter. Comes pre-oiled out of the box, and we can go ahead and crack it open and get it installed. Stock panel filter comes out. It's already pretty clean. K&N's just gonna drop it. Easy enough. All right, let's run it. So the K&N drop-in filter on a completely stock intake ended up making 235 wheel horsepower and 186 wheel torque. All right, on to the next drop-in. Take this one out. All right, next up, we've got ourselves an AFE dry filter. It is the Pro Dry S. Fits up just as nice. Oops. Locked in. All right, let's see what this one does. All right, so now we've got the AFE Superstock induction system, which basically just includes a silicone intake hose and their Pro 5R filter. This one is actually oiled versus the dry one. So let's go ahead and get the filter out. Check it out, it's a blue media, similar in looks other than color to the K&N. And the intake tube here. So the nice thing about this is that it removes those resonators that take up space in the engine bay. It cleans up the look with a nice black tube, and it should produce a little bit more induction noise as well. So let's go ahead and get this on the car. First thing first, we can disconnect the mass airflow sensor here. Filter's already out, and that just comes out like that. Screw clamp. This is nice. And that should come out. So this resonator gets deleted, should clean things up a lot. All right, AFE sent us a couple new hose clamps. Let's get this on the car. So we'll get that roughed in, seated, and grab the filter. Now we can tighten these down. That's tight. All right, everything is secure. This one should be ready to go.
We don't have any other filters, right, that we have to test? Drop-in?
Correct.
So what I would do is I would take the extra filter off and run this one, because we'll know if it makes extra power, and if it does, it means it makes extra power for the other two. So, since this one made the most power with the drop-in, I'd say.
Does it have to be ripped out?
Yeah, you have to pull it out. We're not going to use that box again.
It's true. That's true.
And it's science.
R.I.P.
Yes, science!
We have not tried this before on this car. As you can see, it's still on there. We made all our power on our tunes with this still on there. And who knows, it may not do anything.
Intake restriction removal.
That's right.
Now we're making power.
A cathedral of power.
No gloves.
Wow.
Well, you can a little bit, but.
Moral of the story here, boys and girls. This carbon post filter, take it out. Take it out if you want to make power. If you are the type of person who forgets to put an air filter in your car, then maybe leave it in, but otherwise, this is a restriction. In the trash it goes. All right, so now we have the GR intake from Toyota. This intake has a nice big oiled panel filter with it, a red intake tube, and surprise, another post filter that does not look as easily removable. So we're gonna run the test with this post filter installed, and we'll go ahead and start assembling it now. We get our factory MAF sensor here, which is gonna bolt in with the OEM screws. Now with those tight, we can more than likely get this part on. Let's get the filter in. There. All right, that's in. I didn't get any positive clicks here. It seems to be, you know, kind of just smushed together and it holds itself. So that's interesting. And it uses the factory intake elbow here, PCV elbow rather. All right, looks like we're ready to run this one on the dyno now.
That's right! 239.93.
Pretty swell.
That's pretty swell.
All right, so now we have the AFE Takeda intake system. So this is the orange one. This is the filter housing, connects to the stock snorkel. That's pretty nice. And it's constructed of a really nice hard plastic. So it should be good for intake temperatures as well. Won't get heat soaked quite as badly as metal. A cone filter. And this is a Pro 5R, comes factory pre-oiled. Coupler, here's your intake tube. With the MAF housing and our hose clamps. Also get a license plate frame and some stickers. Nice. So for this one, you get your PCV as a fitting that goes into here. It has a pressed in threaded fitting with a barbed hose fitting here for your PCV hose. That's kind of nice. MAF sensor should go right here. Bolt holes line up, and I believe they give us 2 little replacement screws for that, so that's nice as well. And they are Torx threaded. Slippery. There. One to secure the coupler to the pipe, another to secure the coupler to the intake manifold. This looks like a plug for the side of the air box. And we've got our filter. So we can pre-assemble that. That's tight. Let's go ahead and get these torque bits. All right. Let's fit this box up. Get the filter in the housing. That on there first. All right. This one's good. It's ready to run.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Nope, it's not. Reconnect the MAF sensor. And it looks like they want us to take the plastic intake barb off of here. All right, so for this one, we're gonna actually need to remove the plastic elbow for the PCV hose. So we're gonna take off this hose clamp here and peel this off. Might need some convincing. All right, now everything's connected, snug, secured, filters in place. This plug's here. It's ready to run on the dyno. It looks like high voltage parts, you know?
What do you think, John?
It looks like it performs. I'm not saying anything else. But we're in Georgia, and this is not Georgia colors.
It looks like you put like a Home Depot
Yeah.
leaf blower in his,
Yeah, yeah.
or like one of those shop fans when
Yeah.
you have a flood. Or like that.
Some type of high voltage. All right, so now we have the K&N Cold Air Intake system. So this one comes with a cone filter, a metal intake pipe here. It's got a nice metallic gray finish, factory size MAF housing, and it also looks like it has a threaded bung for the PCV. So we've also got some, look like heat shielding, air box itself. Let me set it down so I can get the parts out. Intake pipe, Got some trim for the airbox, intake coupler, some heat shielding of sorts, the airbox itself, and all the hardware we need. And of course the filter. This one is a pre-oiled K&N filter, of course. This is where it's going to go in here. Like that. This connected here with a coupler that goes up to the factory intake. So let's get the hardware out. So this looks like a bracket that's going to connect to the lower part of the factory mount, and the bracket probably here for the upper. As noted, a threaded PCV port. All right, that's snug. Looks like we've got some replacement MAF screws. Yep, so we can go ahead and put that on. Okay, got a little bit of extra material here that may have not been fully ground down, and it's causing a little resistance getting this MAF sensor in. I don't want to force it, but I'm just noting it. Okay, I can get it down this way, but the way this MAF sensor is tall on each side, this should be going straight down like that, and I'm not able to. That is interesting. Okay, it looks like it's going straight down now. Okay, let's see if I can get these screws secured. Okay, the seal needs to bite down. I don't want to push too hard and rip the seal. That is still sideways. That seal is not seated. So we might need to attempt to clearance this ourselves to avoid scraping up our MAF sensor any more than it already has been. You can see that. Look at this. MAF sensor won't seat correctly because of all that boogering.
Pre-drilled hole and then they welded it off center.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't get it to seat all the way. Here.
Which ones is it? Starting
Like prostitution.
Did you get it?
Traveling prostitutes go straight state lines and all sorts of shit.
Don't pull it out until it's time to pull it out.
Okay, yeah, it's in there. Nice. Got 2 bolts, 4 washers, 2 nuts. So washer on each side. So it looks like this is some heat reflective pieces that you can put, I would say probably on the bottom here to protect this metal airbox from getting heat soaked while you're driving from the heat that rises up in the engine bay from the header. And this trim is what is put on the top of the airbox all the way around. More than likely isn't going to take these sharp right angles, but I'll try. Might have to cut it into individual sections. Let's read the instructions. Cut the provided edge trim in 2 sections. One section is to be 27 inches long, the other section is to be 13 inches long. Okay, per the instructions, we are to cut this at 27 inches, so that's what I'm doing now, like that. Okay, so now are to use the rest. Top of the heat shield is shown into the hole of the heat shield. So like that. Okay, so we got a coupler here. That is gonna go onto the throttle body. All right. So we have some heat shield strips for the airbox. Look like they have some adhesive pulls, yep. It wants us to install these on the bottom to keep the heat off of the airbox. Okay. Box down, and over, like that. I already don't like how it doesn't fully seal. See that?
Yeah.
There's a big old gap. Of note, it does contact, albeit gently, the AC compressor belt cover. But if you clock it the right way, it shouldn't be a problem. It is threaded in about as far as I'm willing to do on a plastic fitting. Right.
Easy peasy.
That's tight. There's no way this one doesn't lose in the quality department. Fitting that contacts this AC compressor belt cover. This you have to like cut yourself, and it doesn't round the corner well. It has adhesive heat shielding that goes under here. Doesn't connect to the factory snorkel at all. Doesn't seal to itself at all. Don't buy it if you like easy installs. I think it's like 300 bucks.
Oh,
Yikes.
I want to say it's not cheap. I don't think.
And it's called a cold air. That is not a cold air intake.
No, it's a hot air intake. If it doesn't seal to itself and the factory snorkel, not a cold air intake.
So much like the other cars that we work on, they label them cold air intakes, and they're not. They sit inside the hot engine bay.
Yep.
With at least this
A
one
metal
has-
box.
This one has a little bit of flow, but
Doesn't seal to that.
notorious.
It did come with heat shielding adhesive for the bottom of it. Well, you can tell that they provided it on this one because the fans are blowing hot air literally at the bottom of the box.
Down.
A closed hood?
Yep. We'll do
A road?
hood first, and then we'll do close to this.
Okay.
The sound though is 10 out of 10.
The sound was pretty good at first, but then when you get higher in the RPM,
Yeah, it starts to,
that is
Yeah, it
not
does,
nice.
doesn't it?
it's like, I don't know what it is. Too high pitched
Yeah,
of a
it's
resonance.
really high pitch.
Okay, so here we have the HKS Cold Air Intake, the full kit. This looks like a lot because it is a lot. HKS spared no expense here, gave us a really nicely constructed plastic air box with a intake pipe for replacing the stock intake tube in front of the bumper, and a secondary one that comes off the airbox into a secondary location behind the bumper as well. This thing includes a carbon fiber intake pipe that goes into the engine. A really nicely made metal powder coated thing here for the MAF housing. This looks like it might be billet. Good amount of hardware for everything. And so yeah, we're gonna get started assembling this. They included 3 sets of instructions, one for the cold air intake, one for the intake duct, and one for the carbon intake kit as well. So we're gonna get started on this and get it installed on the car. All right, that's on there. And let's get it pointed to where the instructions show it needs to be. All right. That's sponge tape. Where's the... So this is the intake duct. It has 4 screws and 4 nuts to secure it. It goes through here, and that's what connects to the factory radiator. Okay, attach the remaining sponge tape on the factory resin bracket. So that's the extra here, so we're gonna cut that off. Okay. All right, so we're gonna get this intake duct in here. Temporarily put it there. You get the duct in place. Carefully rest it there. All right, so part of this intake pipe assembly is going to also include the factory resonator from the factory intake tube. So let's go ahead and remove that and swap it over to this piece.
Reinstall your
resonator. Okay, now we can go ahead and mock this up. The MAP sensor on here. Nice. Okay. There we go. All right, so the HKS has a side duct as well, and it reuses the factory bushing that comes out of the resonator box on the side of the factory intake. So that just slides in here like this. All right, so to get this factory bushing in, it's easiest to take the metal collar out of the middle of the bushing and then it slips in, and then you're able to slide the metal collar back in, and now it's super secure. And we can take this side duct over to the car, to the HKS airbox. Okay. Away. What'd you need a hammer for? All right, so we got some decorations for this airbox lid. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
All right. All right. Okay, now we have the cold air intake from Perrin Performance. And this is designed to operate as a true cold air intake in that it brings the filter element to right behind the bumper. And this is a very oily filter element, as you can see. So I'm gonna leave that in the bag for now while we get these hose clamps out. And it comes optionally with a silicone intake tube, which we opted in for to make it a full intake kit. There. So this one is relatively simple in that intake hose hooks up here to the throttle body. You got your MAF housing here, and you can see Perrin did a purposefully crafted little crimp here. That's so it can fit underneath the radiator support and get behind the bumper easily. And this, just one single 10mm bolt is behind there that secures it, and this is where the filter goes. So pretty simple. It cleans up the engine bay really nicely, and we can go ahead and get started. Beautiful fitment MAF housing. Where we're probably not going to get it all the way on. All right, so to install the Perrin intake, we should be able to get it on without taking the bumper off. I've done one of these before where you can take all these bolts out and these pop clips out. You're able to peel back the bumper gently enough, usually with a helper, to snake the intake pipe in with the filter. So let's start removing these tins. Now with this out of the way, we might be able to get this in, but also we're gonna have to get this factory snorkel off, which I forgot about. Also forgot about that. So for the Perrin Cold Air Intake, this intake pipe goes behind the bumper underneath the radiator bracket, or the radiator's upper radiator support. The instructions call for a full bumper removal on this one, but since we're hot swapping here on the dyno, we're taking a little bit of a shortcut. We unbolted the upper radiator support. There's 2 bolts on each side on the top and 2 on the bottom. Do I recommend doing this? Probably not. You're risking getting your hands down near the header where it's really hot, so just be aware that that's what is required to do it without taking the bumper completely off. But now we can very easily snake this up under here and get it connected when we get our hose clamp. A little bit oily. I took all my concentration with the greasy gloves and the header just barely touching my knuckle. I could feel the heat coming through, and I'm just like, okay, just one little turn at a time, one little turn at a time, get it in there, get it started. All right, one pop clip there, and another right there. Now we have one Perrin cold air intake installed, ready to run on the dyno. All right, so first up, with the stock intake with our GR86 on the dyno, the car put down 234 peak horsepower and 185 peak torque. Next up, the AFE Takeda Superstock induction system with the Pro 5R filter. This one was super easy to install. Cleaned up the engine bay, removes the resonator under the stock intake pipe. Looks a lot better. It's a clean black silicone tube. When we ran this one on the dyno, it made, with the Pro 5R filter, 236 horsepower and 185 wheel torque. That was a gain of 2 horsepower. The maximum horsepower change under the curve was 6, and the maximum torque that it made under the curve was 5 horsepower at 5,700 RPM. So for $137, those are some pretty good gains. Ease of install was extremely high. This thing can be installed in as little as 5 minutes with hand tools, and you're on your way. The fact that it still uses the stock airbox as well is something of note, because the stock plastic airbox does not heat soak like metal intakes do. So you'll have more consistent performance when you're daily driving with this. So I really think it's a great option for a lot of people. I'd say even for the majority of people that are seeking an upgraded intake to actually make power, this for 137 bucks is hard to beat. So we also ran the AFE Takeda Superstock induction system with the Pro 5R filter with the stock post filter removed. It's a post carbon filter that's behind the regular air filter that can cause some restrictions. So with that screen removed, we made 239 peak horsepower and 187 peak torque. That was a gain of 5 horsepower and a gain of 2 wheel torque. The maximum change with that was 8 horsepower and 8 foot-pounds at 5,700 RPM. So considering that's an easy thing to do, is to rip out that stock carbon filter, post filter, even more gains with that. So I'd highly recommend this system to anybody that's looking for the best bang for the buck. Next up, we had the AFE Magnum Flow Pro Dry S Drop-In filter. I'm about to sneeze. There it is. Finally, I can feel it. All right, next up, we had the AFE Magnum Flow Pro Dry S drop-in air filter. It is incredibly easy to install. We ran this one with just the filter. We did not change out the intake tube with this one, so I was running the stock intake tube after the filter. and this one produced 235 peak horsepower, 184 foot-pounds peak torque. That was a gain of 1 horsepower and a loss of 1 foot-pound of torque. The maximum horsepower change on this one was 3 horsepower and maximum gain of 3 foot-pounds of torque at 4,900 RPM. So for $76, this is also a great deal. The fact that it's not oiled means that you're not gonna have to deal with re-oiling it after you clean it. You could either shake it out, vacuum it out, or just simply replace it when it needs to be replaced. All right, next up, we had the AFE Takeda Orange Edition Cold Air Intake with the Pro 5R filter. Now this one, super easy to install also. If you're down with the orange color, you might like it. It's also available in black if you don't like the orange, but this was a really bold looking intake that also performed well. Again, it was super easy to install. You can do it in probably 10 minutes versus 5. And this one produced 237 peak horsepower and 188 peak torque foot-pounds. That was a gain of 3 horsepower and 3 foot-pounds of torque. The maximum horsepower change on this one was 5 horsepower and 7 foot-pounds of torque maximum at 4,500 RPM. Priced at $395, that's one of the most affordable cold air intakes, full replacement kits as well. Personally, I wouldn't be against running this one in the black color because it looks really good in black. All right, next up was the Toyota GR Performance Air Intake Kit. This one produced 237 peak horsepower and 187 peak foot-pounds of torque. That was a gain of 3 horsepower and 2 foot-pounds. The maximum horsepower change with this one was 4 horsepower and 4 foot-pounds of torque at 6,500 RPM. This one's priced kind of in the middle at $504. Gives you a nice OEM Plus look. I really like it because it has a large airbox volume and a large filter with lots of surface area. So it gives you a decent growl. It's easy to change the filter. We offer that Toyota part number for the replacement filters. So another really good contender here. Next, we took the post filter out of the Toyota GR Performance Air Intake Kit. That one's even easier to remove than the stock one because you don't have to rip it out like you do in the stock one. That one just simply pops out and gives you less restriction post filter. And with no post filter on the Toyota GR Performance Air Intake Kit, we made 240 peak horsepower. We made 187 foot-pounds of peak torque, which was a gain of 6 horsepower and 2 foot-pounds of torque. The maximum horsepower change with this one is 7 horsepower and 5 foot-pounds of torque at 7,000 RPM. So this one really has a strong top end. For $504, it's still a really good deal. It's really compelling. It has that nice GR badge on the front of it, and it really, again, gives you that OEM Plus look. Next up was the HKS Full Cold Air Intake Kit. Now this one is a dual inlet kit. It has a pipe that comes over from the stock location and gives you a secondary air draw off the top of the radiator, which is kind of cool. It also has a nice carbon fiber intake tube. This thing looks really good. It has a honeycomb filter inside of a nice clear air box with the HKS logo and decal on the front of it, so it looks really good. However, it is the most expensive at $1,395. So, on to the numbers for the HKS. The HKS produced 237 peak horsepower and 186 foot-pounds peak torque. That was a gain of 3 horsepower and 1 foot-pound of torque. And maximum horsepower change with this was 3 horsepower and 5 foot-pounds of torque maximum. Okay, next up was the K&N intake kit. The K&N retails for $472.99. It is expensive for what it is. This is an all-metal construction kit. The intake tube is metal, the airbox is also metal. It also requires quite a bit of assembly, which for the price, I would expect a little bit better fit and finish. On the intake pipe, we did have some issues initially fitting the MAF sensor to the intake pipe, which for some people, may be a deal breaker because you want the best fit and finish for your money. And with this one, we saw some room for improvement for sure. This one did offer the loudest, most aggressive intake sound, presumably because it does not have a lid on top of the airbox. It is supposed to seal to the hood. So onto the results for this one, we did both an open hood test and a closed hood test. So for the open hood test, we made 238 peak horsepower and 187 peak torque, which was a gain of 4 horsepower and 2 foot-pounds of torque. The maximum horsepower change with this was 6 horsepower and 6 foot-pounds of torque at 5,700 RPM. The K&N we tested also with the hood closed, and we were able to produce 235 horsepower peak and 182 foot-pounds peak. That was a gain of 1 horsepower and a net loss of 3 foot-pounds of torque with the hood closed. The maximum horsepower change with this one with the hood closed was 3 horsepower and 2 foot-pounds of torque at 7,000 RPM. Next up is the K&N Drop-In air filter. This one is also relatively cheap at $68.99. It's actually the cheapest product that we tested today. And that one made 235 peak horsepower and 186 foot-pounds peak torque, which is a gain of 1 horsepower and 1 foot-pound of torque. The maximum horsepower change here was 3 horsepower and 3 foot-pounds of torque at 4,900 RPM. So again, a great bang for the buck with a drop-in filter. Next up was the Perrin intake. This is a true cold air intake because it relocates the air filter in front of the radiator assembly behind the bumper where the stock snorkel ingests air. So this one is priced at $557.60 for the full kit, including the intake tube as well. It produced 238 horsepower peak, 185 foot-pounds peak torque, which is a gain of 4 horsepower and a gain of 0 torque. The maximum horsepower change with this was 5 horsepower and 4 foot-pounds of torque at 5,400 RPM. So with the Perrin cold air intake, it produced a strong induction growl, which we really liked. It leaves tons of room for activities in your engine bay, and I think that's one of the most important things to note about this. When you have that intake installed, you have full access to almost everything in the engine bay underneath it. You could probably even change a belt with that thing still installed. So it's really nice to have all that real estate cleared up with the cold air intake. It does sound really good. The only thing I'd say is that the filter is oiled. Ours, when we took it out of the bag, was extremely oily, and we actually had to wipe it down to just get all that excess oil off. But it is still easy to clean. You are able to install this without removing the bumper. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can take off the upper radiator support and get that out of the way and actually pull the bumper back gently to get everything in and install it correctly. All right, so it's time to wrap this up. We'll start wrapping it up by talking about what intake produced the most gains. And that would be the Toyota GR Performance intake kit. That one produced a maximum horsepower change of 7 horsepower and 5 foot-pounds of torque. It's solid, it makes great noises, and it looks great. At $504, it is in the middle price range for all these intakes, and the AFE Takeda was only 1 horsepower short of those gains. So for $137 versus $504, I would honestly recommend the AFE Superstock induction system to most people who are looking for a nice, clean, easy install and consistent performance gains. All these intakes aren't difficult, but the one that took the most time was the HKS. The HKS Cold Air Intake kit has the most parts by far, so it does require the most pre-assembly, and of course, since it does have those 2 intakes on the box, it does require some more time. Bumper removal recommended, but not required to install that one and the Perrin. And also with the HKS, considering that the gains were right there in the middle at $13.95 price point, it's hard to justify that much money. But it does look awesome, and it does sound really good. So leave that up to you guys. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed everything. These dyno runs were really fun for us. Hope they were fun for you to watch. Please check the description below for links to all these products on techsport.com. Let us know in the comments what you plan on buying, and also let us know what you want to see from us next. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
That was good.
All right.
Nice.